Hi, and welcome to my video tutorial on Watercolor Wonder Crayons. The stamp set we're going to use is Simply Soft, which is one of the new Stampin' Up! Hostess stamp sets. Just came out in July of 2011. And I often get asked questions about Watercolor Wonder Crayons. These are my very favorite watercolor tool in the Stampin' Up! Catalog. I absolutely love them. And the card I'm going to show you today uses watercolor paper from Stampin' Up! And uses the watercolor crayons in 3 different ways. So this is a great tutorial because it gives you a lot of different ways to use the watercolor crayons. Okay, so watercolor crayons come in 4 different sets. These are the Bright set to match the Bright's collection of cardstock. And I'm going to go ahead and start by stamping the outline of my stamp here, the kind of cool, I don't know, is this an allium or something like that? It's pretty. But I'm going to go ahead and stamp this in Stays on Ink. Now, if you haven't used clear mount stamps from Stampin' Up! Before, my favorite way to attach them is to put the rubber side down, take your clear block, and press this down on here and count to 5 in your head or sing a little song. I won't sing a little song. We're all much better off that way. But count to 5, and then you know that you'll get a really nice cling between your stamp and your block, so they'll stay when you want them to. Alright, so Stays on Ink is a little different from the other Stampin' Up! Inks. This is a solvent-based ink. When you open it, it has this little plastic piece inside it. This is not part of the packaging that's like for travel. You can just toss it. This is a really important part of keeping your Stays on pad happy. Since the ink is solvent-based, I know this isn't like smell-o-vision where you can smell it, but it smells a little bit alcohol-y, and this helps to keep your pad from drying out when you have it stored. So I'm going to keep that. Some people even put a glue dot between the plastic there and their case so that it never comes out. But I'm going to go ahead and take my stamp and ink this up. Now, one of the things I noticed about stamping with this really long stem here is that when you ink it, it tends to get ink right along the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe that a little bit. And I noticed with my clear mount stamps that I really like seeing what I'm doing because I can tell if that stem is starting to slide sideways and I might catch an edge. Now, Stays on dries very quickly, so if you yak a lot between inking and stamping, you'll have to re-ink. Okay. And so I'm going to ink that up and go ahead and stamp. I'm going to keep that nice and straight so I can see that my stem isn't slipping sideways. And so there we have our flower. Okay. And I'm going to close this up because, again, Stays on is alcohol-based and it wants to evaporate quickly. So we have our stem stamped here, and what I'm going to do now, this is a 2-step stamp set because this is the outline and this is the inside part, so they're meant to go together. And I'm going to ink this part up. Let me attach it to my block here. I'm going to ink this part up starting with my crayons, but before I do that, I'm going to take my aqua painter, which we'll come to again later, and I'm going to just wet this down a little bit to make my watercolor crayon slide a little more smoothly. Now, the cool thing about aqua painters is that the barrel and the tip attach separately, so you can open this up and fill it with water, usually, or bleach or floor wax for other kinds of cool techniques. But we're going to go with water today. And so I just wet this down, and then I'm going to take my watercolor crayons, and I'm going to use the pumpkin one here, and I'm going to take my crayon and I'm going to color directly on my stamp, and you can probably see the color starting to grab onto the stamp there. Okay, these are real smooth to work with. They feel just really nice and smooth. And then I'm going to take my aqua painter, I'm going to wet this one more time, but I want this to actually be really wet. I want it to have sort of a misted effect. So I'm going to take my Stampin' Mist or water, if you happen to have a spray bottle with water handy, but Stampin' Mist at 50% works great for cleaning your stamps and for doing this technique. So I'm going to go ahead and spritz there a couple times, and I'm going to do it here off camera so I don't wet my whole workspace down. But can you see how much water on there? It's not like pooling. Well, I guess it is actually. It's pooling just a teeny bit. So maybe I'll let it dry a second. 1 second, that's good enough. But I'm going to take my stamp here, and this is another cool clear mount thing. You can see what you're doing to get that lined up, and I'm going to stamp right onto there. Now it starts off really bright, and then you can start to see the ink starting to spread just a little bit from the watercolor crayons. And another cool thing about this paper is that it works really well with the water. It'll start to bend just a little bit, so you can just encourage it to bend back. But that watercolor paper will absorb that ink and work great. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and wipe off my aqua painter on a piece of scratch paper there, so that it's clean when I go on to my next piece of our project here. Okay, so one way to use watercolor crayons, color directly on your stamp, the way we just did. Another way to use watercolor crayons, when this is still wet here, I'm going to take my old olive crayon and I'm just going to color directly on my paper. And since the paper is wet, I get kind of a nice spread to it. Okay, you see how that is? And if it started to dry a little bit and you want to just mush that color around, you can do that here with your aqua painter. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to clean my aqua painter off again. Okay, so there's our flower, and you can see that the top part has started to get a little softer as we've gone. And then the last way I'm going to use my watercolor crayons is by painting with them. So I'm going to take my aqua painter and go ahead and brush the tip of my crayon here. This one happens to be the saffron crayon. And I'm going to color right on my cardstock so that we get kind of a cool wash background. Now when you do this, watercolor is not a monotone kind of thing. Watercolor has a lot of variety to the tone. So you want kind of some darker spots and some lighter spots. And I'm not really an artist, I just play one on TV. So there we have our watercolor done around the edge, so we have kind of a cool wash in the background. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean my aqua painter off one more time, just scrudge it on a, that's a technical term, scrudge, on a scratch paper. Alright, so there we have our finished watercolor using the watercolor crayons. I have a piece of peach parfait, which is a great match for pumpkin pie, sort of a tint of the same color. We're going to put that on there, but before we do, I'm going to use my Stays On black pad again, since Stays On is such an awesome black color. I'm going to use my thank you image from Perfectly Penned, which, okay, I can't believe I'm saying this on a recorded device, but I really didn't like this stamp set when I first saw it in the catalog, but now I love it. We got it at the Stampin' Up! Convention this year, and I have not, I've not actually put it away because it's been on my stamping table since I got home. Alright, so I have the little thank you on there. I have a piece of Pear Pizzazz seam binding, which is a really nice compliment. Pear Pizzazz and Peach Parfait are both from the, use my ribbon scissors here, both from the In Colors from 2011 to 2013, no, 2010 to 2012, so those will be available through next summer. I'm going to tie a knot here around our piece, and then because I go through them like water, I'm going to take Stampin' Dimensionals and stick them here on the back. And I normally would probably just go with 4, maybe 5, but I'm going to go with 6 because, like I said, that watercolor paper wants to curl once it gets really wet, and even though it'll flatten itself out when it dries, I'm in a hurry. So I'm going to go ahead and peel these off the back and stick this down, and there we have our very simple but very elegant watercolor crayon watercolor card using the Simply Soft Hostess stamp set. And remember, if you host a party or you have a large order yourself, then you can earn Simply Soft with your Hostess dollars. And the new Stampin' Up! Hostess program has changed, and I was just talking to someone today who said she was really excited with how much easier it is to spend your Hostess dollars now on whatever you like. So go ahead and check that out and enjoy the watercolor crayons.